Really real, no, this is not for play. I see you and you see me, you wanna ride the wave. I can spot you from a mile away. Tap the gas and I'm gone, this is not a race. I just bought some racks in. What's happening? It's just me, my guys, don't got no rap friends. You ain't see the front, but talking back ends. Oh, I see the money, whoa, pick and roll, give and go. I see the money, whoa, pick and roll, give and go. I see the money, whoa, pick and roll, give and go. I see the money, whoa, pick and roll, give and go. Oh my God, 3 cars, 5 jobs, slam door, off the law. Shorty said she got the wap, I just want the walk. Posting money on the snap, that'll get you robbed. Nike tech, shot wet, 3 dice bet, head crack flags. This is not a question, I don't ever practice, never act in, always act in. Back in 2010, we were sipping.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm LaWanda.
Tiffany.
And I'm Ron.
And today we are back talking about Godfather of Harlem. This is season 2, episode 6. So if you guys hang tight, we'll be right back with you.
One burnt you, know that ain't cool. Wanna show you how I'm nothing like him. Swear that's the truth. So you can't trust.
All right, everyone, we are back, and like I said, we are talking Godfather of Harlem. This is episode 6 of season 2, and this one was titled "The Ballot or the Bullet." So we already know about that infamous speech.
I read that in college.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
I did too.
Very riveting.
And now we've got the visual of why it was necessary.
Exactly. And the episode opened up with Adam Clayton Powell giving us the basis of the episode and talking about those freedom riders who were basically kidnapped and murdered. Although up until that point, they weren't sure if they were still alive, but after 4 months, you can only expect the worst. And even, Bumpy and Malcolm had the conversation about that. And it seemed like Bumpy had a little bit of guilt about it too, because, he had funded that through Mamie and gave her the money for her organization so that they could send those freedom riders down there. So it's kind of like he felt like a little bit of personal responsibility.
Yeah, I like what Colin Powell,
Adam Clayton Powell.
Adam Clayton Powell, I couldn't get it out. I like what he said at the pulpit, had it not been for those 2 white boys that went missing, we would have never known anything about it. If it had been 3
never heard about
boys,
those freedom riders.
You would have never heard about them. And, it's that theme plays on even in 2021, it just keeps playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we get around to that part of the discussion, Malcolm seems to hit the nail on the head, because his speech is not only is it everlasting, it seems to just becoming truer and truer with each decade.
And that speech, pretty much put the nail in his coffin. Because, he was taking a political stance when he was asked not to,
Right.
Well, since we're already on the topic, we can, skip to that point and talk about Malcolm first, because he had, like I said, had that conversation with Bumpy where he was basically saying, that they respond to violence. We mentioned that. He was saying, we can't just, be docile and kind of just let things happen. We got to take action. We have to bear arms. We got to defend ourselves. And then as he was having that conversation with Elise later on in the episode, she was extremely worried for him because of, while she was very taken back and loving the speech, she was worried for his life because she knew what kind of violence that would incite from the other side.
And I was really taken by Betty, her attitude about it, because when Malcolm said he thought not to give the speech because he felt harm may come to his family, she gave him what I call the kiss of death. She said, you have to do it. And I think even for Betty, she may have realized what might lie before him, you giving that speech. But she said, this is your heritage. This is what you need to do. This is your legacy, and you need to follow through with it. And I was just taken by her strength that she wanted her husband to go ahead with something that could cause not only his life, but hers and her children. So that must have been when you talk about a strong woman, she simplified that in every manner, by giving her husband the okay.
She said the kids and I will be fine.
Yeah, and it's true, because if you remember back to a few episodes ago when they were kind of like having it out about being in Miami and him not enjoying himself, and spending time with the family. I think that after that point, she realized, like, this is really his calling, like this is his life work. And if I stop him from this, then he might resent me forever. And so it's like living with the what ifs. What if I would have done X, Y, and Z? I think that she realized that she had to just let him be. It's kind of like what Bumpy brought up when he was talking to Elise. Like, when you are dealing with stubborn men, sometimes you just got to let them do their thing. And I think that Betty realized that she could only let him live out his purpose. Otherwise, he would always be resentful of, what he didn't do.
Yeah, and like his life's work, the idea that it's not just for him, and it's not just for his family, it's for all of us, because we're all in this situation to where we are in a system that is always actively engaged against us in every area of our life, and that the system is enforced with violence. That is not just standing up on its own. We're not complicit in a sense that, it's maintained through violence. And people will say 600 years of violence, but it's been longer than that, because it started before they even came to the Western world, right? And it started before Africans were brought into this, what I like Dr. Carr calls it, this field of criminal enterprise, or this field of violence, that it was the Native Americans who first suffered at the hands, right? So they built this country on violence, and that everybody here is a victim of violence. And it's the idea that his words would get him killed, not him pulling a gun, not him actually shooting a bullet, but just his words were enough to really kind of challenge people to think, to get them to act in a way to resist this system that would get him killed. And I think, I think we've had to grapple with this more, that the more you challenge this system, the more you assert your rights, your human rights, not just your rights as a citizen, but your right as a human being to live, to be free, to reach your highest and greatest potential, that you meet this resistance, and it's resistance with violence.
And not only that, but it was not just for Black people. He was talking about uniting all races against white supremacy. And so that's a huge threat to white supremacy when you have everybody against what you are trying to, ingrain into the nation. And he really called it out, the democracy versus the hypocrisy. Everybody comes here thinking that they're getting this American dream, and then they get here and find out it's the exact opposite sometimes, So it's like the hypocrisy of it all.
Yeah, the American nightmare. And you kind of denoted, and I think you denoted a little earlier, LaWanda, about the population of the world and how white Americans are really the minority. When you look at the world's population of color, they wind up being the minority, and it really comes down to power. They don't want to share it. They don't want to give it up. And I think I said in one of our episodes before, we're not asking you to share anything. It's owed to us. And see, and therein lies, I think, that little sliver of thought. I'm not asking you to share what's rightfully mine. I'm asking you to move over and get out of my seat, because that's where we stand with this. We have a right to to live freely and to be amongst ourselves and do the things we want to do, and not be attacked by this society that they call justice. It is not justice.
And I think
you know what? I always say about justice, I see justice as just us. And
Exactly.
us does not include Black and brown people.
Exactly. Exactly.
You were going to say something, Luanda?
Yeah, I said my perspective is always this: if you view history, that the way we live has not always been the way that we live. The world did not function like this prior to European colonialism and imperialism, right? So if you go back prior to 1492, people were not under this constant state of oppression globally. The fact that they came here and they started the capitalistic or imperialistic enterprise and of going around and oppressing every people that they encountered, this is something new in the whole history of the world, right? And so if you go look back in history and say we've been here, let's just say Homo sapiens sapiens, since we've been this evolved human being for hundreds of thousands of years. This is new in the spectrum of humanity, of having this just global oppression where you have this one group of people taking up all the land and the resources and forcing everyone else to comply with them. It's not normal. It's not normal in human history for one group to demand that everyone bow down to them and live the way that they say that you should live and work to empower and enrich them. That's not normal. And I think you look at the fall of most great civilizations is when they reach that tipping point of when they've just gone too far. You can't permanently oppress and suppress people. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
I agree.
Yeah. And so like just thinking, connecting that to Malcolm's statements, it wasn't even that he was saying like, we want to attack white people. We're against white people. It was like, just let us live. Like, let us have a seat at the table. We're not trying to take nothing from you. We just want to be left alone. And it's like, it's a conversation that still goes on today.
Yeah,
where you say so much, you say something and one person takes it as what it is, and then somebody else might take it as you're against me. And that's not the statement being made.
He said, he was like, we're not anti-white. He said, anti-police brutality, anti, oppression, so on and so on. Yeah. But it's not being anti-white.
Yeah.
But Malcolm's, the threat that Malcolm posed and people like Malcolm posed is really his ability to influence people, right? Because on the one hand, you have a system that can influence people to get them to comply, but you have a person like Malcolm that really gets people to think and say, well, do we really want to live like this? In what ways can we challenge the system and not go along and overturn this and basically say, we don't want to be oppressed people? And it was his ability, it was Martin's ability, and people like them, their influence is what made them a threat.
That's true.
And just as their influence was big, I mean, the opposition's influence was just as big, because when Malcolm was getting those phone calls and receiving those bricks to the window, it wasn't from white people. That phone call, that was from a Black person. You could hear it in the way that they were talking. That was another person of his race. And so that's the part that I hate that happened, is that, we had this conversation a few episodes ago, how some of us were used, pitting each other.
We had it today offline, Luanda and I.
Yeah, divide and conquer.
Yeah. So that was like the sad part about it. And of course, this show is based on history. So it's just, you want a different outcome, but you already know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was also interesting to me, the relationship that Adam Clayton Powell had with Malcolm X as well. Two opposing views necessarily, but Adam had enough sense of awareness to understand Malcolm and understand that the things that he was saying, are needed and true to our existence. And I could respect Adam Clayton Powell for his position and where he stood with Malcolm, and as well as Bumpy.
Yeah, they had common interests though. They had common interests.
So the common interest is us.
The Black community.
Right, it's us. And I think that's where the Nation of Islam missed it with Malcolm X. It's only so much you can ask of human beings when you continue to pummel, to tear them apart, break them apart, so destructive a nature that has been placed on us. And there's only so much you can expect a human being to take. And I think with that speech, that great speech, Ballot or the Bullet, we're not saying that the first thing we're going to do is grab our guns and start shooting. What we're saying is, okay, we're going to try to vote, but you don't want us to vote. We've turned the other cheek, and you still want to find another cheek. Okay, it's now time to end this, and we have to do it your way. So if you want to play chess, then we have to play chess. And it's, I'm not calling for people to run out in the street and grab their guns, but it's just, it's sad that through the Nation of Islam, the Black Panthers, we couldn't understand the one commonality that we were all fighting for. It's just that power begets power, and then you become so destructive with power because you're sitting at this seat and you don't want to be overthrown. You can't have a Malcolm X going and talk about something that you're not talking about. So let's just kill him. That was just, if I live to be 100 years old, I will never understand the Nation of Islam wanting to kill Malcolm X. I think that's the thing about this system, right? That it beguiles you and it tricks people into doing things that ultimately are against their own self-interest, right?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the whole scheme of things, and you look at where we are 60 years later, it was not in anyone's best interest that Malcolm be betrayed, but in the moment, somehow the system, the trickery of it can make you think that's in your best interest. And it's not in any of our best interests to turn on each other. We're only going to get to where we go when we're unified and we're collective. We don't have to agree on some of the small details, but we do have to agree on that we all make it together. You know what I mean? Because history has shown that the only way we accomplish things is when we stick together. And that divide and conquer has only served to weaken us.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Robeson talked about that, power and mass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, and this episode was like a lot of historical events that were happening, because we got to see the Freedom Riders, of course, but then Malcolm's perspective with the Ballot and the Bullet. And so I just like how I was highlighting things that, it's a fictitious show, but parts of it are true. And so we're bringing in the reality of the situation, and then like just as us watching it in present times, just relating back to history. So that's one thing I just really love about the show, is how it makes you reflect on, in retrospect, what things could have been, and then the prospects for what things could be. So
I really want to do the research to see whether or not that part of the story was true about how they found out where the bodies were buried. I wonder if that was true.
Yep.
I wondered that too.
Yeah.
I definitely thought about that. And I'm like, hold up, did Bumpy really, orchestrate that?
I was thinking that they took some creative liberties to make it entertaining. But it was really interesting how that occurred. And even to have Ernie up in the mix.
Well, you know what? I started to say he gained a little in me with this incident, because when he said to Bumpy, he didn't like he didn't like
he don't like the Klan either.
Yeah, he didn't like the Klan either. And when he gave his reason why, it made it was made sense. But to have Ernie,
it made sense.
To have Ernie go down and do what he did, and in the fashion that he did, when Ernie said, what did he say? Something about when he asked him about, Bumpy said, "Show him no mercy," and Ernie said, "What's mercy?" I'm like, okay.
What's mercy?
I'm like, okay, you sent the right guy. Okay, he's going to get it done.
Listen. That's what let me know that Ernie's days are numbered. Ernie's checking out soon.
I don't know.
That's his swan song.
I appreciated Ernie this episode, though.
I did too. That's why I know he's checking out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's found a new lift on life or something. He did the right thing. He did exactly what he needed to do.
No, because Stella's gonna be the death of him. The stuff that happened before then, like the good deeds.
Oh, let's not talk about.
That's what I said.
Stella has gotten a lot everyone.
She's gotten people killed.
Yeah.
And the path that she's on, and I know why she's doing it. She's trying to avenge Teddy, and I get that. Kudos to her. but people are getting killed behind Stella. And I just think that Ernie's fate is sealed because of that.
Well, I wish she'd take that same fire and work with and not against, because,
well, she's not trying to take Bumpy down. She's trying to take her own dad down. But unfortunately,
that's collateral damage.
Exactly what I was about to say. It's collateral damage. I mean,
it's collateral damage.
You're working so hard against your dad, you're taking everything else down with you. And that's all from anger. And I just wish that she kind of, take a step back.
But she's not thinking.
No,
I mean, she's really on a rampage. That conversation she had with her mom about like how she really loved and fawned over her father early on. And then she was kind of just foreshadowing, he's going to get his, telling her mom that. And I'm like, I didn't know what she was referring to at first, but then once I seen by the end of the episode that she had been feeding information to the feds, that's like, oh, Stella, come on now, girl.
Her days may be number 2 because now she's in a tough position. Because if the other members of the family know that she's talking to the feds, he may not be able to protect her. It may be one of them that take her out.
A rat is a rat,
right? And they don't like him anyway.
Well, she did say it's interesting because she did say, "Look, I'm not don't call me anymore. I'm not giving you any more information." The question,
but she gave them enough. She was talking to them already.
Yeah, I would really like to know what she gave them. In terms of her dad, but it must have been enough, so he was
going to go to the bank, so she gave him a lot. Now she had him and Bumpy on the ropes.
Okay.
Yeah, although, I mean, Morgenthau did say that he couldn't take Chin down without Bumpy. So it was just enough, It was enough. And he was asking her to testify, which I thought was pushing it.
Yeah.
And that's why she backed off. She was like, "Oh no, don't call me no more." I'm not doing that.
That in fact, that's too much.
But I think next episode, I saw the description for the next episode. I think Chin is gonna find out next episode that what she did, because the description says something like Chin makes a startling discovery about Stella. So I was like, "Oh Lord." I was like, it's about to hit the fan next week. I said, he's either gonna find out she been talking to the feds, or he's gonna find out that she was behind. She might find out everything, that she killed Benny.
Lord.
Well,
Stella's days really might be numbered.
That's what I was thinking. Her and Ernie.
Okay, so Chin's in an insane asylum, and of course
I loved his act this week.
Yeah. He's not liking any minute of it. But my question is, the doctor that had given him the so-called crazy pill, was the doctor working in cahoots with Chin? I doubt not, because what he gave him was LSD. He gave him LSD.
Hired his own doctor.
No, I'm saying.
So he gave him the LSD.
Right.
I think it was like a double-sided, two sides of the same coin. Like on one half, it'll make him crazy and make him loopy and appear to be, out of his mind. But on the other end, it's gonna make you talk and tell the truth.
It has sodium pentothal in it, which makes you tell the truth. And so now I'm trying to understand this doctor. Doc, didn't you know what you were given? So apparently you want Chin to go to jail, because you wouldn't give him the sodium pentothal. You wouldn't give him LSD an hour before he's to meet with the feds doctor to determine whether or not he was sane enough to stand trial. So it just didn't make a lot of sense, because she was on top of her game, when she asked
not unless the doctor is just so oblivious to what Chin is involved in.
He told the truth, because she asked him, she was like, "Did you take LSD so you can appear crazy?" He said yes.
I think he was better off just going in there and playing the act instead of taking the pill.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Because he was already doing a good job. All he had to do was take some notes from the people around him, bang his head on the wall a couple times.
Just keep spitting. Just,
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yes, it was. And his reaction to the people around him was priceless.
Oh, that was too.
But I can imagine being sane in an insane asylum would be enough to drive you insane.
It would make you go insane. He told the guy, hey, bump your head a little faster. I'm like, I mean, oh God, that was funny. That was a real funny part.
Yeah. So the unlikely alliance that we thought was going to fall apart last week with Bumpy and Chin, it seems like, you know, for the time being, they still have common interests of, you know, getting off with this against Morgenthau. So they kind of have partnered back up in having the same lawyer. I like how Bumpy handled that situation with the lawyer. The lawyer tried to play him at first, thinking he couldn't afford it.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'm expensive.
yeah, that was very strategic of Bumpy to go in and do that. Always thinking 10 steps ahead.
Yeah, I like that about Bumpy. Like he's always a few steps ahead of these folks. He's always playing chess. Always playing chess.
Yeah.
Yes.
He sees a move long before you do. I mean, to write him a $5,000, you know, check retainer to come on board. You know, I'm thinking, okay, Bumpy. Once again, you've proven your
money talks.
And
money talks. He took it.
It's true. Yeah. And the thing that I found interesting, which I was also wondering whether it was true or not, was, you know, where Bumpy was saying, basically Mamie had went into Adam Clayton Powell and kind of asked on behalf of Bumpy, like, can we do this exchange? You know, I prevented him at first from going and finding the Freedom Riders, but if Bumpy can, you know, do his thing and find them, can they get off with this case? And so I was wondering if, you know, the president had any role with them not being prosecuted, you know, if that was
giving
the
them immunity.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I more or less think that when you got rid of those two so-called witnesses, you know, Morgenthau,
that case fell apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once the witnesses were gone.
Yeah, you know.
And even how that went down was so genius by Bumpy, because he really had me thinking that, you know, the Frenchman, I thought maybe the black guy really had, you know, right.
Well, when he said,
was ready you see how he was going to dispose of the brother like that? I'm like, wow. See,
but see, here's Adam Clayton Powell again. You know, he hears Mamie. Mamie goes in to visit. He hears Mamie, and all of a sudden, he's looking for this file that he conveniently places on his desk, and he pretends that he doesn't know where the file is, and he turns his head just long enough so that Mamie can pick up the file and put it in. You know, I love Mamie. I tell you, I really do. This woman, I mean, she, I just didn't know words for Mamie. There just aren't any. But I love that. I love that little scene there. You know, he's supposed to be a, you know, reverend, you know, he's supposed to be above the fray, but he knows he's in a war. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
And Mamie is a rider. I mean, she's gonna ride with Bumpy through it all. And even with the prospects of him having to go away for life, like that's a lot, especially after he's already been to Alcatraz. And you know, Bumpy had a little flashback of how hard that was on the family when they came in to visit him and they had to see him getting, you know, beat up by the police officers. That was a lot on their family. So Mamie was like, I'll be damned, you're not going back.
You know, and I think she did a little fire under Bumpy when she said, I don't know if I can wait another 11 years or however many years he would be in. I'm sure that lit something under Bumpy Johnson as well. Because, you know, he doesn't want to lose Mamie at all. And I certainly don't agree with that. Because he's got a gem. He really does. So she'll do anything for him. And she's proving it every episode.
I think I like that conversation because it's the same as Adam Clayton Powell with Morgenthau. The real business is happening behind the scenes, right? Whatever the votes that are happening on the congressional floor, the press conferences, all the business is taken care of over drinks and a cigar or some back room.
In the back rooms.
Yeah, and I think it's always good to be mindful of that what you see in the press is a contrived story for us who have worked in the media and press offices before, who are responsible for crafting these stories. We get that about how much massaging it takes to get a message out to the public, but there's always a backstory. And so I thought it was interesting too, was the conversations that Powell was having with Morgenthau about the different laws. And I was like, the laws reflect the culture. And it's not anything that really gives them authority other than what the people impute into them and what people agree to abide by. And I thought that was interesting because they're both having what the American public or what Christian law, what Jewish law will tolerate. And it's like, at the end of the day, I don't know, all of these systems kind of serve the people who are enforcing them and not necessarily serve the people in general.
Yeah, and I think that the mix of like religion and politics, you know, and morality, as Powell was kind of expressing, you know, Bumpy is a criminal, but he does good deeds. And that's what he was trying to explain to Morgenthau, who was more like, well, he's poisoning his community. How good can these good deeds be if he's destroying the community? And so it's like that struggle between right and wrong and moral and immoral. But I think, you know, Adam Clayton Powell was seeing the big picture, whereas Morgenthau was being like,
by the book.
Yes, by the book.
Well, he sees.
But you know how I look at that? It's hard for me because I'm the part of selling drugs to your community. I think that's something that's intolerable. I can't tolerate that or condone that. But I think Bumpy is the only one who really understands the system as it is. The system is criminal. It's crooked. It's run by corrupt people. I think Powell and people like him are people who are trying to hold it up to the ideas that it promotes, but not necessarily the reality of what it is, because you have people who are basically colluding with each other to oppress the majority of the people in the country. So Bumpy is not a criminal to me. I think he's playing the game correctly as it is played, because everybody else is around making backdoor deals, right?
Yeah. I mean, the drugs is only a means to an end. If he had an alternative, I'm sure he would go with that. But unfortunately, like you said, in that game, money talks. You gotta have the deep pockets to go along with being in that game. And so selling the drugs is just a means to an end.
And we all know that Black folks don't bring drugs into this country.
Yeah. So we'll start there.
Yeah, let's start where it starts. We're not the ones flying drugs in, okay? Let's just understand. So you're right. He's playing the game as the game is given to him. So you want to play chess? Let's play chess. You want to play checkers? We'll play checkers, you know? So it's just that he's good at no matter what game you throw at him. I don't necessarily like you, Lawanda, I'm not necessarily seeing him as a criminal necessarily. I see him as a businessman who happens to be dealing with something that is illegal. But you know, the FBI does illegal things too, but they hide behind a badge and a gun that says it's okay. So again, your justice system, you know, when we say justice is blind, they're actually right. It is blind. It's blind to everybody except white America. So
yeah,
we need to take that blinder off justice so they can see everybody, because you know. Look at
and because the thing is, okay, if Bumpy is the criminal, what are the people in the South where the Klan has infiltrated the police and the sheriff's office? And these are the people who are enforcing the rules, but these are also the people who are picking up people and lynching them, right?
And terrorizing folks, right?
Yeah, terrorizing people. So it's very hard and difficult for me to define Bumpy as a criminal when he's dealing with people who are criminals. They don't get the label. They don't get the label because they're in power and they get to make the rules, but their behavior is criminal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's immoral and it's criminal.
And that's what I was saying. It's like it's you can't, the lines are blurred. There's a huge gray area there. And it's always like one side is trying to be so self-righteous and pointing the finger, but not recognizing that, you know, they're doing the same thing themselves, which, I mean, it goes back to the hypocrisy that Malcolm was calling out. You know, you try to demonize one set of people for doing the very things that you say that you're not doing, but you really are. So it's like, this whole episode was just a really good, just a thought-provoking episode.
And I think that's what made Malcolm and people like him dangerous, is they kept trying to bring people's attention back, say, no, this is a distraction, this is a distraction, this is, you know, this is that flowery language that takes you away from the point. Look at this and see it for what it really is. Should we really be giving all of our money and power to this? It's the ballot of the bullet. Either we're going to get get to participate in this society, but we're not going to be the basis, the use, all the energy, all the free labor, all the creativity that you just keep and take for yourselves, and only this one group gets the benefit of it, or we're gonna have to do something about it. And I thought we were talking about this violence is that it's them that dictate the violence. It's not like oppressed people are starting off being the violence. We're responding to violence.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're responding to violence.
Yeah, that's true.
But then you are called violent for responding to the violence. That's why it trips me out whenever I hear the arguments about the protests and if there's looting and this and that. And I'm like, well, who taught them to be violent?
Yeah, it's true. It's like the never-ending cycle. It's so, like, I always think that it's so sad that this show is so relatable, even though this time period was 30, 40 years ago.
But it hasn't
It's
changed.
the same thing. Because if you read the Ballot of the Bullet, it's like,
it's
so relevant now. When you read it, it's like, sheesh, he could give this speech today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that just speaks to the generation who has to end it. It's going to end. We've seen it. We've seen the rise and fall of nations before, and I think we're living in a period where we're going to actually see that change and that revolution, that shift, because you can feel it, right? You can feel it because I think for the last, I'm gonna say 8 to 4 years, it's almost like this incessant violence, all of these police killings. And then when you see people storm the Capitol and there are no repercussions, like they're like treason.
What does that say about just us? Just us.
Yeah.
It does not include us.
And so it's like, oh, so this document doesn't mean anything, so we shouldn't follow this at all. If nobody's gonna. Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
We have to follow it to the letter.
But even
we will be held accountable.
But even when we follow it to the letter, they still find reason to step on us, to tear us down.
That's what I mean.
In fact, I mean, when you look at Black Wall Street,
this next generation is
right.
This next generation is about it.
Right. I mean, when you look at what they did with Black Wall Street, I mean, you know, Marcus Garvey had didn't believe too much in desegregating, you know, because segregation is a pill that put us all to sleep. Because as we segregated, or we thought we were segregated, you know, we started thinking that, well, maybe the ceiling isn't, maybe there's no ceiling there at all. Maybe there isn't a glass ceiling. Maybe that is a sky up there I can reach and obtain. No, you can't. You remember, race is about power and money, less about your skin color. It's really about who you control to bring up and who you control to keep down. That's what racism is really about. And they use mechanisms and decoys to keep you in a position where they can continue to control you. And until we understand that fully, we're always going to be victims of racism because we allow it to happen. And I think with Bumpy and Malcolm X and this show, which I find to be one of the best shows I've ever, you know, have ever watched, it really slowly but surely is bringing all that out. And it's doing it in such a way that we can all understand. You know, you watching this show, you're getting a message, and what you do with it is something different.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And even just like just Bumpy and the way he maneuvers, I'm thinking about it, and it's like he's always 10 steps ahead, but we know how he ultimately passed. And so it's like I'm wondering how this show is going to show that, and then where do we go from there? You know, like, because he does have loved ones that live on. I wonder if the show will pick up with, you know, Mamie and maybe Margaret and Elise taking on, you know, carrying on the torch. So I just try to balance out like the fiction of it with the reality of it. I'm like, well, where are these two going to meet?
With the exception of the characters, I haven't found any fiction. I mean, we are living this on a daily basis. So it's odd, you know.
Well, I think aside from the show being entertainment, if you can extract the actual historical events, it's a lesson for us to say, well, we've been here before. This is what happened. What can we do differently this time to be more successful or to get to another level? It's just a reminder that we've been here, we've seen this. Nothing is new under the sun. We faced these kind of issues before. So maybe it speaks to us that it is always saying in unity that we have to work together, every aspect of our society, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the religious figures, whether it's normal people, whether it's the gangsters. We all have the same goal, and that's to get from under this system. Yeah. Right. And so it's a reminder that the predicament we're in hasn't changed. We have to change. We have to change in how we respond to it.
Right.
And that's a good point, because you talked about working together. So now I'm thinking about this in terms of the show. Where does this leave Bumpy and Chin? Are they still going to be able to continue to work together with, you know, the laser focus of Morgenthau and them? And then, you know, the Black Frenchman, it seems like he's in the position where I always say that sometimes you got to get down or lay down, because it don't seem like, you know, Bumpy is asking him to join the team, but he's really not asking. He's kind of demanding.
No, he doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, now that his you know, but it's interesting that you bring up Chin and Bumpy, because I think with Morgenthau, it really brings them closer together.
Yeah, it does.
Because you know, they literally need one another.
And well, Chin needs Bumpy a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I agree, but you know, there are offenses, or rather, Chin can develop a defense that Bumpy doesn't have. You know, he's white, and there's certain areas he can go to that Bumpy can't. So they each have something to bring to the table that is very important to a cause, if they ever decide to sit down and decide exactly what that cause is, other than drugs. So it's going to be interesting how their relationship, the characters develop, because we're seeing that they definitely need each other. So I think with this FBI situation, it really should.
And then they still have the threat of Bonanno. He's still a threat.
Which is yeah, exactly. So they really need each other. They can't afford.
And they keep saying how much they hate each other, but I think by the end of this, they may come to like respect and like each other. Right now, it's just business.
Well, even Bumpy had the opportunity to, you know, give up, you know, the mafia, give up all that information. You know, Morgenthau asked him first. He wanted Bumpy, you know, to turn over the Italians and what they're doing, and Bumpy is you know, his character is just above reproach. He's not going to sit there and allow the system to tell him what to do. You know, I think it was in that poem that was being read earlier. It said, you know, a strong man who is, whether he's high or low, will never let someone tell him where to go. And that's what you see in Bumpy. Bumpy's not going to let Morgenthau and his so-called chips to tell him what he should do. You know, he's not a rat. He's never going to be a rat. So that's what I love so much about Bumpy, because, you know, he has a ground and he stands on it no matter what he's looking at.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is he knew that, like, sure, I can rat out the Italians and get out of this charge, but on the other hand, he knew that he would have to be a puppet for the government. And so he was like, I'm not willing to sacrifice that. And so I think Bumpy realizes that black, white, whatever, a rat is a rat. And you know, you don't get any respect from either community for ratting.
But I think it makes the point. It's the point when you have a common enemy, it works when you stick together. That's the only, because you have the same goal. Your goal is to stay out of jail. So it only works if they stick together.
Enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yes.
Yeah. The enemy of my enemy is the friend.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed this episode.
I did too.
This was a good one. I'm just worried for next week because I kind of know what's coming for Malcolm, and I hope it don't come as soon as I think it's going to come.
I know.
I think that's, you know what, my prediction, that's probably going to be the first scene
I don't.
in next
I
week.
hope not.
No, I think it's
I keep
probably
holding
closer
out
to the
hope that he'll
season,
at least make
closer
it
to the season finale.
Yeah.
Closer
I
to the
don't know.
season
'Cause, I
finale.
mean, this particular one really sets up what we know to come.
Oh yeah,
It
oh
really
yeah,
sets it up.
for sure, for sure. When he took that, when he made the decision to make that speech, I was like, that seals it. That seals it.
But what about Elise though? I'm worried about her because she continues to meet with Malcolm. She was told, you know, in no uncertain terms not
In
to.
public.
And in public. And I'm really worried about her because I don't know if she knows exactly who she's.
Oh, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, it's a
But
problem.
they know she's Bumpy Johnson's daughter, right? You know, so they can threaten her, but at the end of the day, they know who she's Bumpy Johnson's daughter, right?
Yeah,
but that
but
doesn't
then,
scare
you
the
know.
Nation of Islam. Yeah, that doesn't mean nothing to them.
Yeah, I was like, that still might be an issue. Bumpy might have to end up coming to her defense as well.
And that will be, that would be such a masterpiece to try to write that into a script. I would love to see how that turns out, but I just want to know where Elise's head is because she just doesn't care. You know, she's meeting.
But then it has to, you know, the situation with Muhammad Ali, because we know that in real life, Muhammad Ali made the choice to step away from Malcolm once Malcolm was like exiled. Right. So they have to show that. We show the seeds being sown with Muhammad Ali, but we haven't actually seen Muhammad Ali cut Malcolm off yet. So they gotta
address
bring that up too.
That's a good point. Yeah, I wonder how they would show that because we haven't seen him since the fight. So
that's why I said it's some more episodes coming up. That has to happen too.
You know, he kept his Muslim name, so that says a lot about who Cassius or Muhammad Ali truly is. You know, he may have done so for other political reasons, but
because he still became a Muslim.
Yeah,
he separated from Malcolm.
Yeah,
not the Nation of Islam.
And I think that was more political than it was anything else. You know, because
he was young at the time too.
He was young.
Yeah.
He said that was one of his regrets.
Yeah.
Wow. But I think the interesting thing about it is we realize that how all of these power structures are manipulating people, right? So it's almost like when you're dealing with this, you have to be wise because everybody has their own agenda, right? And everybody's manipulating people to get them to push their own agenda. I think that's clear at this point.
Yeah. You see a lot of that going on. Yeah. So, I don't know. Do you guys have is there anything we didn't cover? I think we kind of touched on majority of the episode.
One thing else though, Bumpy, that shows how his maturity for the game. He's sitting there with the two Frenchmen and he's trying to, you know, determine which one is the actual rat, even though I think he already knew. But it's
he knew.
Yeah, it's the way he played that game to see just what the Frenchman would say. And I said the moment the Frenchman the white Frenchman pointed the gun at, and I can't remember his name, but when he pointed the gun, I said, there are no bullets in there. Bumpy was playing that game. And when he pulled the trigger, he knew then for sure that this guy is the one he wants.
Well, he was sending a message because I think it was always Bumpy's intention to get the black guy to be on his team in the first place. So he was like, I'm going to show you just how disloyal your boss was.
Exactly. That was the message.
Yep.
Because he was like, if he had bullets, he would have killed you. And he was the one that was the rat.
Yeah. Had 2 warrants in different countries.
Yeah, see,
Bumpy, he was going to lie to cover his butt and
Bumpy had that. Yeah, and when Bumpy had that information, but it's the way he played it, though. I mean, one hell of a chess player. I just love that move. You know,
he is masterful. I tell you. I hope that just watching this show, it'll inspire some more Bumpies and Malcolms to come along.
Yeah.
Just seeing how they play the game, it's just impressive.
Well, the youth are our mark.
Yeah, particularly for the gangsters, that y'all have a role in this liberation movement. Y'all have a role. Watch Bumpy.
Yeah, exactly right.
Just not for Jordan, right? Y'all just not doing this for Jordans and rims.
Right.
Yes.
You need to know. You need to know. But yeah, you got a stake in this too. That's interesting.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, I think we got it all down. Like I said, I think we're looking forward to next week and the last 4 episodes that remain. So it looks like they're going to keep turning up the heat. Hopefully Malcolm will make it at least until the season finale. We got our fingers crossed. For all the viewers out there, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Please drop down in the comments and let us know what you thought about this episode and what you see on the horizon for the remainder of the season. Also, subscribe to our channel, click the like button on this video and the notification bell so that you get alerted every time we post. We are also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Spot Real Talk, so give us a follow there as well. You guys have anything to add to close us out?
I'm good.
Oh, Malcolm's birthday was last week. May 19th. Happy birthday, Malcolm.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Not Malcolm X.
We share that day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Live fire on the 19th.
I ran up a check, I might do it
By any
again.
means necessary.
Enemies close, have me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be feeding to
Well,
the
I
end.
think we'll call it a night from here. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
To my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. Told her if it's all me, everything is on me. Gon' back it up. Matter what? Told you I'ma do me. Why you hating on me? It's not adding up. I do roll like a Mack truck.